What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and today I wanted to bring something super special where we go through the 7 different factors in the power ranking and how how Andrew Yang is doing, whether he's losing ground or gaining ground, because this is our 3rd iteration of the power rankings. And we've done one for last couple months, so we get to see if somebody's trending one direction or another direction when we take all of the data together. So I wanted to talk about that with you today and compare our power rankings relative to Real Clear Politics, which is a site that aggregates other polling data together on a national basis as well as a statewide basis to try to understand who is actually winning. But we actually look at the data to understand it and not based on a couple hundred people in a survey. So with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam, and for those of you that are returning, it's good to freaking see you. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. So the first factor that we have in our power ranking, we have got 7 different factors. We're going to walk through all 7 of those, and then we're going to get to the spreadsheet where we've laid out all of the data relative to all the other Democratic candidates that are running for president. But we want to really understand Andrew Yang to see what areas he's maybe gaining ground in or what areas he might be maybe losing ground in, and then see where he stands both in our ranking, but also relative to what Real Clear Politics has to say. So what we have here is Google Trends. This is Google search volume for Andrew Yang. So as we can see here, back in February, it started to take off, and there's been higher peaks, and you can see that it looks like it's going up and to the right. Over the past 2 or so weeks here, we've seen like a decline slightly, but I would expect more than likely as the next debate it comes, I think it's this coming week or something. Today's the 11/9. That this, I would expect this to continue. So what we did is we came in here on the 30-day or the 12-month, the 30-day, and the 90-day to get an understanding of his performance relative to everybody else's. But then we also took a look at his YouTube search volume. YouTube is owned by Google, so the data is in Google Trends, and you can look at the search term Andrew Yang. This is in New York, so let's go to just the macro view here in the United States. So we can see here in the United States, let's check out the web search again on macro view. But we can see the same thing on YouTube where he's got a big up and to the right movement, it looks like. And my shit doesn't want to work. The whole computer looks like it's freezing. So there we go. Okay, apologize. I don't know what is going on there. But these are the first 2 factors we have: the YouTube search volume and the Google search volume. The next we have is we use Social Blade to gather the data, and we are taking a look at Andrew Yang's YouTube page. What is Social Blade? Social Blade aggregates social media statistics for individual profiles. So we've got Andrew Yang's YouTube page, and Social Blade will give us the views and whatnot on their page. But I wanted to draw your attention down here. So this is from early January of 2019, and we see again up and to the right, especially since June. It's just been up and to the right, where we had a spike and then a trailing off and it tapering down. Now it's just been up and to the right on YouTube. And just over the past 2 weeks or so, it's got, just in the last 2 weeks, 1.5 million views. That's just tremendous, and 15,000 new subscribers. We stack rank all the candidates on that on their YouTube channels. Then we took a look at their Facebook page, and we looked at Facebook page on a Social Blade, and we looked at some of the things here. But again, we just look here. It's just up and to the right here in terms of the followers. But you get to see the monthly average number of likes on this page, and we compare that to all the other candidates. We also took a look at their Twitter profiles, right? Because the sites that we're looking at, right? We're looking at Twitter. We're looking at YouTube's their YouTube channel. For each one of these candidates, and we're looking at their Facebook page, and then we're looking at the YouTube search volume, and then we're looking at the Google search volume. Like, These are some of the biggest sites on the planet. Google and YouTube are the biggest sites on the planet. So this provides us a tremendous amount of sampling data relative to, say, like the polling data, where you might only have a couple hundred or a couple thousand people, and it's an opinion on who they think they're going to vote for. We want to see what people are actually doing, right? Like if you're a manager or supervisor or something, and you're the people who will work with you tell you they're going to do something, that's one thing. But then when you go observe what they're doing, generally it might be different, right? And that's what we're doing here. Another place that we gathered data from was called OpenSecrets.org, and this aggregates, I think it's FEC, it's like the federal, basically the reporting for donations. So we took some of the data in here. One of the factors that we actually took a look at was this here: small individual contributions. So about 10 million bucks, but 65% of all the donations that have come in for Andrew Yang have been people who have donated $200 or less. When you look at the macro view and you see that a tremendous number of people, like 60 to 80% of people, can't even take an issue of $500 without putting it onto a credit card or borrowing money from somebody. They just don't have $500 sitting around, and that's like 60 or 70% of the entire population. Like, to have 65%, 66% of your total donations coming from small donors who most people don't have a tremendous amount of money, that says a lot. So we stack rank the candidates, and with the highest amount of individual donors that are small, and we also took the total number of donors too, and those are two different factors in this. Then another one of the factors, this is number 7 that we took a look at, was their website ranking. So each candidate has their own website, their campaign website, right? And we took all of those candidates' websites and we saw where they ranked. This is Alexa.com. So this is a tool that companies use to get engagement factors or traffic data on websites or competitors, or use it for research purposes, as we are here. And we can see that Andrew Yang's website is ranked 3,110th in the United States. So that's kind of interesting. But what we did is we stacked ranked that relative to all the other candidates, because what is 3,000th unless you know what everybody else is at, right? And the same thing with the amount of time on the page, as well as the number of page views per visit on average. And we collected all of this data. So if you want to see, I've made videos on every single one of these when I do these with far more detail than what I'm going over now. But we took all 7 of these factors. Each one of these is a separate video. You can go back to the channel. On the way back to the channel, press that subscribe button and that like button. And we put it together in a spreadsheet and came up with this. So first of all, let's take a look at the macro. Andrew Yang is ranked number 2. So this is what we've got here is the first time we did it on the 12th. The second time we did it on the 24th. The third time we did it was yesterday. And we can see that Andrew Yang is ranked 2 out of all the candidates based on those factors that I just described, right? It's not based on a couple hundred people from Real Clear Politics, like aggregating the polling data, right? Like, I understand what they're trying to do, and I appreciate it, because that's exactly what I'm doing. But I think there's a different framework we can take and apply to try to understand what the American public is thinking about. And so up here at the top, we've got the 7 different factors. Right here we have the 7 different factors. Right, so let's start with Google and just work our way over before we get into comparing it to Real Clear Politics. So on Google, he's been pretty consistent since the couple months that we've been ranking here. On YouTube, it looks like he's losing ground. So if we could take a look at this and try to understand the direction of people, one of the ways we can do that is by looking at the macro view of the power rankings, right? And the other is to look at the individual factors within there to try to get a greater understanding. So on YouTube, he's losing ground. And what we do for the power ranking is, this is literally just, where is it? This score here is just literally the average. It's hard to see, but it's the average of the ones that I've just done, the 3rd iteration. You just take all of them, add them up, their score, right? He's 4th here, he's 1st here, he's 2nd here, it's fourth. We take all 7 of those factors and just divide by 7. That comes up with a score, and then I stack rank them to see who is actually number 1 through number 11. But we look at his website, clearly number 1. His Facebook. So this is kind of interesting. We see, and his YouTube channel. Okay, this is kind of interesting. And donations. So 4 of the 7 factors he is losing ground in. 3 of them is pretty consistent, and 2 of them he is ranked number 1 across the board, across the 3 times that we've done this ranking. But the YouTube search volume, the second largest site in the world, over the this past ranking, he was ranked number 2. So he's losing ground on YouTube. He's losing ground on Facebook. He dropped 3 spots on Facebook. He dropped 1 spot for his YouTube channel and 3 spots for his donations. The reason we don't have 3 data sets for the donations in this model is because donations are reported quarterly. That's what the requirement is. So I only have quarterly data, so there's no sense in doing it again with the same amount of data. Let's wait until another month or 2 and get the fresh data so that we can do this again going forward. But we also see on the macro view, right? Because now we're looking at the actual power rankings from the 12th to the 24th to the 8th. And we see that he was ranked number 1 on the power rankings, number 2 or number 1 on the power rankings, and he slipped to number 2. But that's clearly evident because 4 of the 7 factors he's lost ground in. So when you look at all those together, it's completely understandable why he would lose ground across the board. Now, let's take a look at Real Clear Politics. So, as I mentioned, Real Clear Politics just takes everybody else's polls, like The Economist or Politico or CNN or MSNBC or Fox. They take all these polls and then they aggregate them together. That just means add them together, basically. And they try to come up with a number 1 through whatever. And so I took their score for their candidates and I compared it to our score to see like what they say versus like reality, to understand where there's that discrepancy. And interestingly enough, we see right over here that Andrew Yang, they have off by 6 spots. So the establishment, that is the way things used to be done, with polls that don't, you have a poll, right, that maybe 1,000 people, and the American public is supposed to believe that 1,000 people represents the awareness or the collective awareness of the American public for who they think is number 1. I've studied statistics for a number of years. I have a CFA, and like, doesn't matter what the statistics say. If you have 1,000 people on a poll versus millions of data points, like, I don't need to say anything else. You're not fucking stupid. So it is kind of interesting that they have him off so much. They have him at 8th, where he's actually ranked number 2, which is kind of interesting because he's not showing up on their polling data, which is kind of interesting because the people who are showing up on his, right? Let's go through. The top 1 for him is for the Real Clear Politics is Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Pete Buttigieg, which is fine. These people are all part of the establishment. So why do you think they're going to be doing well on the establishment's polls? It's just like, that's how we used to do things. Like, this is 2019, guys. Like, share this video with somebody else if you guys agree with what we're doing here. We're trying to get the message out that there's a better way of doing things. We're about to be in 2020. Like, come on. And this is how we still do things. Anyways, if you guys appreciate this video, leave a comment down below, and I will get to it at the end of one of the videos, more than likely. If you use the hashtag STOLT, just like here where Star Trek Theory did, it is much easier for me to find the comment if you want a response on video. Using the hashtag STOLT, it's much easier for me to find those comments if I'm getting a bunch of comments. So let's jump into it here. We have Star Trek Theory warns a 3-way with Yang and Biden. That is interesting. And STOLT, how do you filter for bots? Seriously, I work with some people that are hardcore communist fucks, and they all think Sanders is an establishment clown. Warren is a three-way with Andrew Yang, Joe Biden. So if you look at New York specifically, which is he is referencing, the three Biden, Warren, and Yang are all tied for second place in New York for their primary. I just did that video. If you want to go check it out, go back to the channel. And that's what he's referencing. And I do think that a lot of people are huge fans of Bernie. Like he's number one of overall on our power rankings. He's the only person who's beating Yang, so he's got a lot of support. But I also can see the other side where a lot of people think he is probably socialist. He is communist. And he is part of the establishment. I mean, he's fucking 75, 77. I don't know how old he is. However old he is. I mean, he's been doing it for a long period of time. I had a friend bring up a comment that they were watching about an interview with Joe Biden, and how they mentioned something about debt and how he had debt, and he referenced the like, oh, that's because of his wife. And my friend was like, well, if you just can't even be honest with it then about yourself, then that's not somebody I want to vote for. But clearly he's number one, you know what I mean, in our understanding based on these 7 factors. But there's a lot of differing opinions, and that's what makes this election actually super interesting, because there's so much diversity when it comes to the people that are out there running. Let's try to go a little bit quicker. So this one is for a reference to California primary, and this is from Rhett. What's good, Brett? Thank you so much for your comment. I really do appreciate it. Oh man, I am not going to do that in a video because that would take me way too long. I apologize, Rhett. But you did leave a comment up here. Well, you've been faster at uploading than I could reply. I made a comment about internet reach with links under the video covering this CA primaries. I'd love to hear. Okay, so I will actually have to read through this first before I'm able to comment on it. I don't want to take everybody's time, but I wanted to come down here. And this is from Pahu Gill. Thank you for the comment. I have some criticism of this method. Just because you search somebody on YouTube or Google doesn't mean you have a positive opinion of that. Correct. Yes, that's true. I agree. Take Tulsi's comments on Hillary, for example. That must have caused a lot of Hillary folks to look up what Tulsi was said about her. So that must have caused a spike in her numbers. Correct. And but that doesn't mean those Hillary voters had a positive opinion of Tulsi or would want to vote for her. Correct. And yes, even though those young voters voted at the same rate as baby boomers in 2018 midterms, the data still oversamples younger voters and doesn't take into account enough boomers, even though they still vote at a high rate. Okay, awesome comment. Thank you so much, Gil. I appreciate the comment and the thoughtfulness that you put together. I think you have a very, very interesting point in the second half of this. The first half is, I mean, if you get attention, period, you win. If you have like Hillary and Gabbard like feuding about shit, that's awesome for Gabbard because she gets more attention. And it doesn't matter if 14 million people of Hillary's camp like vote for or look into her. There's a percentage of them that are going to stick with them. There's a percentage of them that are going to be super avid fans. They're like, wow, I was looking at Hillary. Now I'm looking at like the truth or whatever they tell themselves, right? So I don't like that. Doesn't matter. If you get the attention, I mean, clearly you can see this playing out in the other way as well. Look at Joe Biden. He's just losing ground like crazy. So you have to be good enough. So you get this spike of attention, right, from Hillary or with Biden and his son and all the shady shit they're doing. And you have to be good enough, right? If you're not good enough, you're not going to succeed. So it is interesting to see Gabbard. I'm curious to see if this is just going to be a spike in her attention or if it will kind of like level out or she'll be gaining momentum. It appears that she's gaining momentum based on the data I'm seeing, and just as so I'm making this video, right, and I get to see kind of like a sampling of what people leave in the comments. I don't always get to respond to all of them, clearly, but I get to see that Gabbard is coming a lot in the comments. Gang is still pretty high in the comments. There's a little bit of Warren, a little bit of Bernie, but there's a tremendous uptake or increase in comments around her. So I'm not sure if this is just a building point for her, or if you mentioned like it's just gonna fade. But it's already been what, a month now, and it hasn't been fading. So so gathering that attention is a good thing, because then you have all these people looking for you. You have these like legacy media players that are like talking about this drama, if you want to call it. It's just they don't have anything better to do or intelligent things to talk about, so they try to create drama, and that's what happens, and that creates more awareness for her. So I think having that criticism that they had back and forth, whatever, I don't even know what it was, something about Russia or something, but the that's a good thing for her, in my opinion, because she can get that attention. If you're good enough, if you have the attention, you'll win. But you have to be good enough. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, what I thought was super interesting in your comment is that, yes, even though young voters voted at the same rate as baby boomers in midterms, well, it's actually great. They had the biggest increase in the turnout. They were having a giant increase. There's some research I was looking at from Pew Research, and they have a there's a giant turnout for, I think it was millennials, in the research that I was looking at. But then if you look at the voting data, the same thing, Gen Z, Gen X, and millennials, those are all seeing upticks, where the baby boomers, and I don't remember the generation at post, like behind baby boomers, but both of those saw a decrease. So I don't know where that shift happens, but you're already going to have more people that are age 18 to 53 who are going to be voting in the 2020 election than baby boomers and the older generation above baby boomers. So if this is playing out how it continues to play out, and it garners more and more attention, this is going to be, in my opinion, could be one of the biggest turnouts for a general election that this country has ever seen, ever, because there's the internet. Because people don't have to, like, if have you ever heard of the game Telephone? Where you maybe stand in a line, right? This person says something into this person's ear. This person here goes over and tells this person. Then this person tells this person, right? And it's kind of whispering into the person's ear what the message is. And when you get through 36 people, the message is completely different than when it started the beginning. And that's how it used to be when the news, the legacy media players, were the only source of information. Now people can actually go to the source. Not like through an iteration of fucking playing telephone and where the message is getting distorted over and over and over again, but they're actually being able to go to the source of where the information is, right? They can actually go hear the candidates talk with not some fucking clown pontificating about why they think this person lost or why they think that person lost. They can actually go see this person talk. So I think that is a super, super interesting thing that we definitely, I mean, based on the internet usage, right? I would say this over indexes for the people who use the internet, but the people who use the internet are going to also represent a larger portion of the voting population. So I think that was kind of interesting there. And what was the last bit here, and then we'll wrap this up. And doesn't take into account enough baby boomers. It's possible. It is very possible. I'm very curious to see how over the next several months the predictive accuracy of this, and I really appreciate the comment. If you guys want to get the message out about like what we're doing here, like there's a better way of doing things in 2019, share this video with somebody. It really does help out the channel. Press that like button, tell somebody else about what we're doing here, and you don't even have to share the video, just tell people about what we're doing. If you're like, I don't want to fucking support this guy, he's a fucking nut job, but tell him what we're doing, right? This is 2019. We don't need to rely on some of the fucking, by the way, you should check out my Iowa caucuses video, or just Google the Iowa caucuses and read the Wikipedia page. They literally go into a room and stand in circles to decide who's going to be the fucking, win the caucus. This is retarded shit. It's 2019. Come on, right? Like, jeez. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace the fuck out.